What's going on, guys? It's your boy Jacob from Topside MMA, and in this video I'm coming at you with my locks and traps for UFC 326 Holloway versus Oliveira 2.
Hi brother, it's me, Oliveira.
You guys know the deal. In this video I'm going to break down every single fight on the entire card, and I'm going to rank all of my picks from my most confident picks at the very top with the locks, all the way down to my very least confident picks at the bottom with the traps. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Now first up, we got Rob Font versus Raul Rosas Jr. Now, I know a lot of people are taking the underdog shot on Rob Font this week, and on one hand, it makes a lot of sense. You know, we've seen time and time again, Rob Font has had a lot of success against these young, hungry prospects. He's really pulled off some crazy upsets as well. We saw against Kyler Phillips. We saw against David Martinez. He looked pretty decent in that fight, I will say. And then we saw also against Jeong Matsumoto. He pulled the split decision win off there. So we've seen it time and time again, and now who is he facing? Another young, hungry prospect like a Raul Rosas Jr., who's even less proven than some of the previous prospects that he's fought in the past. So I totally get why people are on Rob Font this week. But the thing that worries me about Rob Font in this fight is really that he just gives up so many damn takedowns. We've seen him controlled throughout long periods of time in his fights, and it's really a problem against a guy like Raul Rosas Jr., who really does have pretty damn good control, and he is going to be a grapple or bust in this spot. So I don't really see Raul Rosas Jr. entertaining the striking as much as some other prospects would in the past, like a Kyler Phillips or so. And we've seen, you know, with Raul Rosas Jr., his striking is going to improve from fight to fight. We've seen it at 21 years old. He's only going to get better and better with every time we see him. And for Rob Font, he's likely only going to get worse and worse every time we see him, because Rob Font, statistically, with the age gap this big, I was trying to find other fights that had this big of an age gap. The only other one that I could ever find from the history of the UFC was Chase Hooper versus Clay Guida. These statistic just differences in terms of the age being this wide never really happen. So on one hand, statistically, I don't love to go against the odds by picking a guy like Rob Font in this, where I really feel like he has that weakness in his takedown defense. Raul Rosas Jr. can definitely rack up control time. And although we've seen Raul Rosas Jr., like we saw him death gassed against Christian Rodrigues in that fight, but that was years ago, and really he's looked a lot better in some of his recent fights, like a Rochi Lang or a Vince Morales. We've seen his cardio has looked a lot better because he's done a better job of pacing himself. You know, he's gone in heavy in round one, he's kind of laid off the gas a bit in round two, and then got right back to it in round three, which I like to see. And although he has been in tricky spots, like against the Vince Morales fight, we saw him in a couple tricky submission attempts there from Vince Morales. He wasn't able to get them, and Vince Morales is a respectable win in the sense of we saw him give Elijah Smith a lot of trouble during their fight, so I put some respect on that win. It really just feels like as long as Raul Rosas Jr. can push a pace for 15 minutes, he should be able to out-grapple a guy like Rob Font. He should be able to control him, land takedowns, and I feel like he should be able to rack up enough control time to be able to win it. But it's a low confidence pick for me too, because who knows, the judges could score this either way. You know, maybe let's say Raul Rosas Jr. has 3 minutes of control time, but then when they're on their feet, Rob Font is landing the more damaging, significant strikes. I could see a round potentially going Rob Font way, and for a particular round that's like that, I could see it going either way if the rounds are close enough. So I don't want to, I'm not dying to play this, especially with Raul Rosas Jr. being this wide of a favorite, but I really do feel like as long as his cardio holds up, he should be able to land takedowns, rack up control time, and it should be enough to win it on the scorecards. But next up, we got Max Holloway versus Charles Oliveira, and as much of a huge Do Bronx fan as I am, I feel like this is a very tricky matchup for him. However, I'm not writing Charles Oliveira off by any means, because Max Holloway, you know, as long as Max Holloway can keep this on the feet, I feel like at this point in their careers, he probably has a little bit more oomph in his punches. He definitely has the better chin. He has more volume. He's the more defensively sound striker. He should be able to have a lot of success the longer this fight goes on, and as long as he can keep it on the feet, I imagine he will win the striking exchanges over the course of 25 minutes. However, you know, there's always that upside with Charles Oliveira. He has the most finishes in UFC history. He has the most submissions in UFC history for a reason. The man is extremely dangerous. So I feel like at any point, if this fight were to get to the mats, Charles Oliveira, I'm not writing off him getting a submission over a guy like Max Holloway, because Max Holloway, you look through his recent fights, he's not fighting any grapplers. I mean, the guys that he's fighting, like a Calvin Kattar, like a Volk, I mean, a Justin Gaethje, even Dustin Poirier, I mean, the guys that he is fighting, they're guys that want to stand and strike and match his pace, and that's why Max Holloway has had a lot of success over the years, obviously. But against a guy like Charles Oliveira, you know, he's going to have that grappling upside that Max Holloway is not really used to dealing with. So on one hand, I feel like Max Holloway is, if he can keep it on the feet, he should have a lot of success. But Charles Oliveira, if this gets to the ground at any point, I am not writing him off by any means. And we saw literally, like, what, 2 years ago, Charles Oliveira went to a split decision against Arman Tsarukyan, who everyone says Arman Tsarukyan could just go out there and beat Ilia Topuria. So if you have put that much weight on Arman Tsarukyan, Charles Oliveira, you really should have submitted him there. Besides the shorts getting pulled down, I mean, Arman Tsarukyan survived by the grace of God there. I mean, there was no other reason. He got lucky, extremely lucky. He should have been submitted in that spot. So who knows? If he would have got the submission there, this line could look a hell of a lot closer. And I feel like people are not putting enough weight on that Arman Tsarukyan fight, because Charles Oliveira is one of these guys where he was having grappling success against a guy like Arman Tsarukyan, who is a better grappler than a guy like Max Holloway, even in terms of the wrestling. I mean, it was pretty impressive what he was doing there. So I will say, I cannot write Charles Oliveira off. I mean, the man has the most finishes in UFC history. He's still extremely dangerous, and he's going to be willing to push the pace. He's going to be willing to put the belt to ass against a guy like Max Holloway. He's going to match the intensity, and if it's a bar brawl between guys that are this talented and this high skilled, anything could happen. So you cannot write off Charles Oliveira in this spot. But anyway, next up, we got Johnson versus Brundage. Now, I like Donte Johnson this week, but I'm not writing off Cody Brundage. I feel like a lot of people are probably putting Donte Johnson as a higher pick on their list. You know, if you guys were to do your own rankings, you might put Donte Johnson as a high confidence pick or a lock this week. I'm just not completely writing off Cody Brundage. He's one of these guys where Cody Brundage has the raw athleticism, he has the knockout power, he has the potential to be extremely dangerous. It's just his mental game is absolute horseshit. I mean, if he were to lock in mentally and actually be dialed in the sense of the fight game, and actually caring and actually being there to fight to the death in the sense, I mean, he actually could probably have a lot of success in a fight like this where Donte Johnson is extremely unproven. Now, I will say Donte Johnson has the much higher upside in terms of the momentum, in terms of where his career could go. I like Donte Johnson. He's extremely physical. He's extremely athletic. He has a lot of knockout power, and he has every way to beat a guy like Cody Brundage. I just feel like for the odds, it's completely blown out at this point. Donte Johnson at minus 800 is unplayable. I cannot justify that whatsoever. I do feel like he has every way to win this fight. Like I said, he should be able to beat a guy like Cody Brundage as long as his gas tank is not terrible, because we haven't seen him go long. That's the thing that worries me about Donte Johnson. We've never seen him go past the second round, so who knows? We saw in that fight against SD Dumas, he was not able to get him out of there in the first round. Hell, SD Dumas did have some success in that first round. He landed a takedown right away. Brundage has the wrestling background. I could see a similar type of thing happening early on. It's just Cody Brundage is one of these guys where he looks at least decent in the first round, but then he just starts to break and wither as fights go on. Whereas with Donte Johnson, I trust his heart and I trust his mentality a lot more. I don't think he's going to wither, mentally at least. I mean, who knows about his cardio? Who knows what he might look like if this were to go to the third round? But in terms of who really is kind of wanting it more and really kind of more committed to their career, Donte Johnson really seems to be on the right path, where Cody Brundage continues to drop the ball over and over and over again. So I'm going to go with Donte Johnson. I feel like he could get a finisher. Most definitely, I'm not writing that off. It's probably the most likely outcome, but I'm not going to say that Cody Brundage has no chance to maybe pull off the upset here. But anyway, next up, we got Garbrandt versus Long. I mean, I got this as a trap because on one hand, you cannot touch Cody Garbrandt money line. You just can't do it. If you're putting money on Cody Garbrandt in the big 2026, you maybe need to be checked into an insane asylum. There's just no upside here. I mean, he's proven time and time again that he just really doesn't have that hunger. And the man is getting paid so much. I don't know how much Cody Garbrandt is getting paid per fight at this point in his career. It's probably close to $200,000, $300,000. I mean, the amount that he's getting paid just to step in there is absolutely insane. So no wonder his heart is not in it like it used to be. I will say, you know, that's why picking him this week is extremely, it's painful, and I can barely do it. I'm this close to picking Long Xiao because I just cannot trust Cody Garbrandt's mentality in his heart and his will to win. Whereas that's the thing with Long Xiao. He might not be the better fighter in any regard. I mean, he's definitely not the better wrestler. You could say the striking is competitive just because Cody Garbrandt doesn't throw hardly any volume at this point in his career. So on one hand, maybe you could give Long Xiao the argument for striking. You definitely can't do it for the wrestling, and you can't. I feel like overall as an MMA fighter, you can't. The other thing that I will give Long Xiao is the durability. We've seen Cody Garbrandt has been a bit chinny throughout his career. So I will say Long Xiao has that aspect too, at least the durability. At least that's the one thing you can give Long Xiao in this fight, and the heart. The durability and the heart you get for Long Xiao, and that's why I'm honestly considering picking him, because like GSP said, you know, fight is majority a mental game, and it gets a guy like Cody Garbrandt who really lacks that mental clarity, that mental focus. Long Xiao is extremely live this week. So I have this as a trap because I know a lot of people are going to be picking Cody Garbrandt for the, I guess, the nostalgia, and I got him picked right now. I'm waiting for weigh-ins. I want to see how these two match up. I want to see how focused Cody Garbrandt seems to be, but I'm waiting to make my final pick on this one. I just got to pick for now. But anyway, this is one I would avoid entirely this week. But next up, we got Borralho versus Dave Reinier. Now, on one hand, I'm not completely writing off Dave Reinier. You know, I know that last fight was absolutely terrible against Brendan Allen. He went out there and quit. It was a terrible look. But I'm not going to just say because of that one fight, oh, he has no chance against Kyle Borralho. You can't really do that because we've seen time and time again, Dave Reinier has come in here as a massive underdog, pulled off the upsets. I mean, we saw him do it against Rob Whittaker Whitaker. We saw it against Bo Nickel. Those are impressive wins in and of themselves. So I'm not going to say he has no shot against a guy like Caio Borralho, but I will say the longer this week has gone on since my last video, I will say I've gotten a bit more confident in Caio Borralho, and it's because I saw his media day interviews, and I loved everything that I heard from Caio Borralho. I'll talk about that here in a second. Now, with Caio Borralho, this is kind of a complaint that I've had with the fighting nerds throughout the last couple months before they started to all lose. They came into the UFC, they were super hot, they were undefeated, none of them were losing, and they went on this crazy like PR run. They went on this crazy like media spree where they were basically going to every single UFC event and doing like meet and greets with fans. They were selling their merchandise, they were taking pictures with everyone. I mean, they were doing this like with almost every single UFC event, and that was extremely concerning because how can you stay as dedicated and how can you train as well as you need to while also be flying across the world in different cities and doing meet and greets with fans? You can't do that and also be training and reaching your highest potential. You just can't do that at the same time. So I was worried about the fighting nerds. That wasn't the best sign of how focused they were in terms of actually perfecting their craft, and that was a concern I had. And then what happens? What do you know? They all start to lose. I mean, Protest lost. We saw Kyle lose. We saw Gene Silva lose. We saw Ruffy lose too. We saw them all lose, and now they're starting to come on this redemption arc where that's literally what Kyle called it. I believe he said redemption. I think he said redemption arc. But anyway, they're coming back and forth. They're coming back from all those losses, obviously, that they all had, and I feel like it's really kind of a good sign to see that from Caio Borralho. He was talking about that in his interview. He said, hey, we kind of got a little bit distracted there. We lost our focus. We kind of lost our reason why, and now we had to kind of regroup as a team. We've been a lot more focused, and he said this is basically the best chemistry that they've had as a group. They're a lot more dialed in on their training. They're taking it a lot more seriously, obviously, and we haven't seen them do this PR run. I mean, they're not going to meet and greets anymore. At least I have not seen that within the recent months, and that tells me that, okay, they dialed it back a little bit. Okay, they kind of lost track of the grand picture here of why they're actually taking these fights, why they're actually fighting, not to just sell t-shirts. They have a purpose. It's to go for the belt. So I love that type of refocus that the fighting nerds have had as a whole, and seeing Caio Borralho talk about that, because that's one thing I like about Caio Borralho. He's a high fight IQ guy. He's a very intelligent guy. So to see him this focused, this dialed in, address the concerns and the issues that he had, and kind of talked about how he fixed those issues, him and as the gym as a whole, gives me a ton more confidence in a guy like Borralho. Because that was my main concern with him in his last fight. He wasn't really pushing a crazy pace. He was down going into that 5th round. He wasn't really going for a finish. That was concerning. He knew he was in France. He was not going to lose a close decision against Imavov. It was not going to happen. And he really kind of dropped the ball there, and I love to see that he talked about that, kind of talked about his reasoning why. He said mentally he wasn't there, he was dealing with kind of just being distracted in the sense, and he seems to be fixing those issues, and he seems in much better mental, in terms of his mental mind frame, I guess, or mind state. He seems to be in a much better spot, and that does give me a lot more confidence against a guy like Dave Reinier. As long as he sticks to a smart game plan, and he sticks to he really has been training to his potential, I guess, and he's not dicking around doing media tours and taking pictures all over the world, he should be in a really good spot for this fight. And I will say too, the other thing with the Imavov fight is he had to make weight as a backup for Khamzat literally a couple weeks prior to that fight, so we had to make back-to-back weight cuts. Was not the smartest move, and he even talked about that in his interview as well. He said, hey, I don't regret it, but yeah, it definitely was not the smartest move, and that's another factor that you got to consider into that fight. Maybe that's why he performed poorly in that spot, who knows. But either way, he's taking this fight a lot more seriously, and he's not underrating RDR either, or underestimating him rather. So I love everything that I'm seeing from Caio Borralho. As long as he keeps this fight on the feet from range, he should be the more accurate striker. So for those reasons, I got to go with our boy Caio Borralho this week. But next up, we got Lee versus Bolanos. And on one hand, I like Jeong Lee to win this fight, but on the other hand, I'm purely fading Gaston Bolanos. Gaston Bolanos is one of these guys that I have just not been high on throughout his entire UFC run. He's one of these guys where he's a one-trick pony. He's a striker or a bust in this fight. And the thing is, though, he has durability concerns. His chin is a major problem. So I can't even trust him to survive and do well on the feet because he gets rocked in nearly every fight that he has. And don't even get started on the ground game. I mean, that's the thing. Jeong Lee is known as a boxer who wants to keep it on the feet, but people forget that Jeong Lee is a BJJ black belt. Gaston Bolanos is a BJJ blue belt, and it absolutely shows in his fights. I mean, he made Quang Lee look like Islam Makhachev in that fight. I mean, he ran right through him on the mats. So although we don't see Lee really grapple hardly at all, don't forget, he is a black belt. Bolanos is a blue belt. If they get into any tricky scrambles on the mats, I think Lee is extremely live for a potential submission. Even though we don't really see him go for that, he wants to keep it on the feet. Against a guy like Bolanos, where that opportunity and that path is so there, don't be surprised if Lee comes out here looking like a grappler, I will say. So I feel like Lee is better everywhere. I mean, I like him on the feet. It's competitive on the feet in the sense of I don't think Lee is just the best striker on earth. I don't think he's anything great, but I feel like the striking's even, but I like the durability upside of Lee. I love the grappling upside of Lee. So he has a lot more ways to win this fight. As if he just entertains the striking for 15 minutes against Bolanos, it could look closer than the line suggests, but I feel like he has just way too many ways to win this fight to even think about picking Bolanos this week. So Lee's got to be a medium confidence pick for your boy. But anyway, next up, we got Fernandez versus Bellato. Now, originally, I was thinking about taking Bellato, but I will say my mind has changed a little bit. I am pick flipping to Fernandez here because that's the thing. When I broke it down in my original full card breakdown, if you haven't seen that, go check it out. I'll have it linked in the description below. That's where I kind of go a lot further in depth for every single fight. But anyway, in that video, I talked about, I like with Bellato that I saw from him in all of his fights, he's picked up rounds against pretty decent level of competition, even though he's losing. Like we saw him lose against Navajo Sterling, but he picked up a round there. We saw him go to a draw with Jimmy Crute, but he picked up that third round there. He's picked up rounds against high-level UFC fighters, or at least higher UFC level fighters than anyone a guy like Fernandez has fought in his entire career. So I like that look from Bellato. But then I went and I looked back and I was like, you know what? The thing about Bellato is he's only winning these rounds when his opponent's death gas. I mean, he almost died to Ihor Potieria, but then he death gassed and then he won the fight in the second round there through the finish there. And we saw against Navajo Sterling. Navajo Sterling was tired by the third round. He ran out of gas. Then we saw Bellato win the third round there. We saw against Jimmy Crute, he death gassed after trying to go for a finish in round one. Then Bellato later on, he won that third round, and they gave him the second round as well. I think he lost the second round, but anyway, he ended up getting it. That's why it was a draw. But anyway, I definitely won the third round. So, I mean, you look at the rounds that he's winning, it's just when his opponent's death gas. It's not like he's the more technical guy who's really looking great on the feet. He is pretty slow on the feet. So against a guy like Luke Fernandez, we've seen him go to a 4-round decision in the past. I don't worry about his cardio in this spot. So at that point, how is Bellato going to win this? I mean, he's not winning against people unless they start to slow down. We haven't seen Fernandez slow down. That's the thing, too. Fernandez, I will say, I don't love his striking, but I will say he does fight to a smart game plan. We see if he's in any trouble on the feet, he has no problem just making it boring up against the cage. I mean, he has no issue with that. He will control you against the cage if he feels to be in any type of trouble, which on one hand, not the most entertaining stuff to watch, but on the other hand, it shows that he does have a high fight IQ. He will stick to a smart game plan and fight for your money, and he will not do some stupid shit and get caught for it. So for those reasons, I'm going to switch to Fernandez. I feel like he does have the upside. We're taking a bit of an unknown on Fernandez because who knows? The level of competition he's fought has not been good, and I'm not super high on him. It's just Bellato. There's too many holes in his game to where, like, if he's only beating people when they death gas, Fernandez hasn't death gassed, I'll go with the undefeated prospect. I guess we'll roll the dice on him. But anyway, next up, we got Sumudaerji versus Jesus Aguilar. I got Sumudaerji as a medium confidence pick for a multitude of reasons. On the first hand, he is going to be the better striker. And that's the thing, too. Statistically, he has a 10-inch reach advantage in this spot. When does a 10-inch reach advantage ever happen in UFC fights? It's not often. I mean, you look at a guy like John Jones versus Daniel Cormier. I believe that was like a 11 or 12-inch reach difference there. These type of reach differences just do not happen. They're pretty damn rare. And on the feet, Sumudaerji does manage his distance pretty damn well. I'm not saying he's just some absolute crazy UFC fighter that's going to be the next champion, but I will say he's a pretty decent, he has the decent ability of using his reach to his advantage. He manages his distance pretty well. And against a guy like Jesus Aguilar, who doesn't really have a ton of pop on his power, he's not the most dangerous guy. I don't see this striking being all that even in this spot. Sumudaerji should be able to maintain that distance well. The only thing, though, how this has a medium confidence pick is because we all know Jesus Aguilar is extremely live and he's tricky with the guillotine chokes. He has those in his arsenal. So let's say at some point, all it takes is one takedown from Jesus Aguilar to create some chaotic scramble on the ground. And all it takes is one scramble for Jesus Aguilar to wrap up a submission. That's all it takes. He could be losing 14 minutes of this fight. The last minute, get some crazy scramble going on. He lands a takedown, wraps up the neck of a guy like Sumudaerji. That's all it takes. So I can't be super high on a guy like Sumudaerji, especially considering we've seen him submitted multiple times in the past. So the opportunity for a guillotine for our boy Jesus Aguilar is extremely live. I'm not going to say I'm not writing him off whatsoever. It's just, if he doesn't do that, if he doesn't get that guillotine choke, I do not see him winning the decision whatsoever. And at that point, too, we really haven't seen too much of Jesus Aguilar's offensive wrestling tested. We saw Sumudaerji, his takedown defense against Mitch Raposo, actually looked pretty decent in that spot. Not anything great, but it looked decent. And against a guy like Jesus Aguilar, he's gone against wrestlers in the past who have taken him down and presented those guillotine opportunities. But if no one's shooting in on him, how is Jesus Aguilar really going to wrap up a guillotine against a tall, lengthy guy like Sumudaerji? It would have to be some crazy scramble, like I said. So I don't realistically see that happen. So I do think Sumudaerji does win a decision here. I feel like that's the most likely outcome. I'm just not completely writing off Aguilar in this spot. But anyway, next up we got Durden versus Tumendemberel. I mean, oh my goodness gracious. Durden is better everywhere, minus the chin. I'd say that's about it. I mean, minus the chin and knockout power, he's better everywhere. If he is smart, if he has the cardio like he used to, and he comes in here with the wrestling heavy game plan. He's been on a huge skid. So it's one of those fights where I could see him actually kind of locking in here because he's on a skid. He's losing. He's lost multiple fights in a row. It's not been a good look. But on the other hand, I did some digging. I talked about this in the Discord. If you haven't join in the description below. But I talked about it in the Discord. Durden just signed a new 4-fight contract in it was like October of 2025. So he's not fighting for a contract. His contract is secured. So who knows? Maybe he says, screw it. I got the contract secured. I could lose another 3 fights before I really got to lock in for a win. I'll just come stand and bang for this guy, pick up my check and go home. That could happen too. I'm not writing that entirely off. But if Durden really comes out here with a smart game plan, he comes out here to wrestle, he can push a face for 15 minutes. We know Tumendemberel is not that high of a guy in terms of his raw skills. I mean, we saw Carlos Hernandez work him that entire fight. Carlos Hernandez is a bottom tier UFC guy. Cody Durden has fought some of the best throughout his career. So in terms of the experience and the actual skill set, Cody Durden clears here. It's just the durability in the fight IQ and the cardio concerns. That's why I'm waiting to see the weigh-ins for this. I want to see what type of shape that Cody Durden is coming in. If he seems like he's washed, if he seems chubby, if he doesn't seem like he's really dialed in and focused, I'm going to pick flip to Tumendemberel because I do think he has all of the finish upside in this spot. I feel like he could definitely hurt a guy like Cody Durden, who's been hurt in the majority of his recent fights. We saw Cody Durden, he got hurt by Al Nascimento. I don't blame him for getting submitted there. It was just the more concerning thing is that he got rocked, which led to the submission, because Tumendemberel definitely could do the exact same thing here. So I worry about Cody Durden. It's just if he has the cardio and he can push the pace for 15 minutes and stick to a smart game plan, he should win this fight. We'll have to see if he does that though. That's why I might pick flip on this one, but we will see with the weigh-ins. But anyway, next up we got Dober versus Johnson. This is a similar thing in the sense of I like Michael Johnson in this spot. It's just the only thing I worry about him, potentially the cardio, potentially the durability. Now, we've seen Drew Dober in recent fights. He has seemed to be on a major decline. I mean, he's looked worse and worse and worse in his last 3 fights. I mean, he went life or death against Kyle Prepelic, a man who was 0-4 in the UFC across 2 separate stints. I mean, we're talking Chris Moutinho level records here. That's what Kyle Prepelic is on. And Drew Dober was on his way to at least drawing a decision there. I mean, it would have been a bad look either way had he not got that knockout. So after that performance, there's no way in hell I can pick Drew Dober. I can't. I cannot do it whatsoever. But this thing, though, Drew Dober still has the heart to win. He still has the knockout power. He's going to be at a speed disadvantage here. I think Michael Johnson really will be a step ahead on the feet. I think his boxing is a lot more crisp than the guy like Drew Dober in the big 2026. And I feel like as long as Michael Johnson does not crash out and make this an ugly bar brawl, he will be able to win this fight. I do worry about him in terms of his cardio. I feel like he can slow down. We saw that in his fight against Daniel Zellhuber. He dominated the first 2 rounds, but the 3rd round came around. He definitely slowed down a bit. He started to kind of, he was on his back foot. I mean, he really wasn't pushing the pace all that much. He definitely was starting to slow down a bit. And if you give a guy like Drew Dober, if you start to slow down against him and you give him that chance in the round 3 comes around, he's potentially live for a knockout. I'm not going to write Drew Dober off if this fight were to extend. It's just early on. I do think Michael Johnson is sharper on the feet. He should look a lot better, at least throughout the first 2 rounds. And as long as he can survive that 3rd, I feel like he should be able to win a decision here. But I'm definitely not writing off Drew Dober. Either guy could get a knockout here. I mean, most likely, we've seen both their durability concerns have kind of gotten worse throughout the years. Obviously, as your chin gets cracked more and more. We saw what Diego Ferreira did to a guy like Michael Johnson. So I'm not saying he has the better chin here. If anything, Drew Dober probably still has the better chin, even at this point. It's debatable, I guess, but either way, I feel like someone could likely get knocked out here. I'm picking Michael Johnson just because I think he has the cleaner striking overall, but either guy is definitely live for a knockout. I just realized, too, I will move myself over. But next up, we got Rodrigues versus Ferreira. This is a similar thing, too. It's kind of like how I did all my medium confidence picks this week in the sense of They have a clear way to win, and it's basically up to them to lose the fight in the sense of, with Lee, if he does something stupid, if he engages in a bar brawl like he did against Hyder Emil, sure, he could get caught and get knocked out. If Sumudaerji comes in here and tries to grapple against Jesus Aguilar, yeah, he might get choked out. And same thing with Gregory Rodrigues. If he comes out here and tries to stand and bang against Brunno Ferreira in the first round when Ferreira is extremely fresh, then hell, yeah, Brunno Ferreira could definitely knock his ass out just like he did in the first fight that they had. I would not be surprised whatsoever. I think if anyone's more live for a finish in the first round, I would give a huge upside to Brunno Ferreira because that's when he's fresh. He has a lot more knockout power compared to a guy like Gregory Rodrigues, and it's going to be very even and it's going to be a tricky fight in the very first round. It's just if this fight extends. That's the thing. I think Gregory Rodrigues is better than Brunno Ferreira everywhere in terms of the feet, in terms of the grappling. I like him everywhere. It's just the chin. Brunno Ferreira has the better chin and has more knockout power. That's it. The thing with Brunno Ferreira, too, is his cardio is not great. We've seen him slow. Yeah, he was able to push a 15-minute pace against a guy like Marvin Vettori where they were just striking the entire time. But if RoboCop comes in here, lands takedowns, pushes a nasty pace, makes this just really grueling, just like he did against Christian Leroy Duncan, he can have a ton of success in the spot. I mean, we saw him do it. We saw him do it to CLD. We saw him outstrike Roman Kopylov on the feet. I mean, he's outstruck strikers. And in CLD, that was a good look in terms of his fight IQ, too. CLD probably had the advantage on the feet, so he said, screw it, I'm going to take this guy down and wrestle him. Third round came around. Gregory Rodrigues, he is manhandling CLD. I mean, it was so dominant, and I feel like he can do the exact same thing against a guy like Brunno Ferreira, who really had bad cardio problems. I mean, he made Abbas Magomedov's cardio look amazing in that fight, so it just goes to show Gregory Rodrigues, as long as he does not get knocked out in the first round, or maybe the first round and a half. I say Brunno Ferreira is live for a knockout in the first round and a half. But beyond that point, I would be surprised if Rodrigues lost, and I would be extremely surprised if he were to lose a decision. I feel like the decision here is extremely live for Rodrigues if he doesn't get a finish. But at the same time, Rodrigues is very live for a third round submission, maybe a knockout even. If Brunno Ferreira starts to slow down like he infamously has, that could be a major concern. I feel like the round 3 is live for a guy like RoboCop. But anyway, next up, we got Tobias versus Nurgazé. I'm going to have to move myself again. Tobias versus Nurgazé. This is a tricky one because on one hand, Rafael Tobias is extremely green and extremely unproven. He's extremely young. We've seen him clip before. I'm not very high on Tobias. His striking is really not that great, and it's not someone I'm really wanting to play as a big favorite. This is one I'm completely avoided. I mean, I feel like the only way you could put some action on this, maybe if you were just an absolute madman, you'd parlay up Tobias. I'm not doing that. Maybe you take a stab on a submission prop, but even then, it's just one of those I'd rather just sit back and watch, because we know with DR Nurgazé, his grappling has been exposed at this point. I mean, it looked abysmal. Both of his 2 UFC losses coming by submission against guys who really aren't known for submissions. Not the best look. And it's how he got submitted too. It's so fast. I mean, he really has nothing. The second you take this man down, he's like a fish out of water on his back on the mats. It is a terrible look. So a guy like Tobias, who does have a lot of submission wins, he does have a grappling pace that he's relied on throughout his short career. I feel like if he lands a takedown here, it's probably going to be over for Nurgazé. He's probably going to get submitted. But if this is on the feet, we've seen both guys get clipped. I think they both have chin problems.
He's not throwing as many, but he lands with...
So if they're just, reckless, they're throwing haymaker for haymaker on the feet, I'm not going to say Nurgazé is out of this. Either guy could knock the other one out. So I'm definitely not dying to ride home on a UFC debut, untested prospect who might have chin problems. Who knows what his cardio might look like if this fight were to extend long. DR does have a decent wrestling base that he could rely on. So maybe if he keeps this on the feet, it could look a lot closer than the lines might suggest. It's just if this hits the mats, Tobias should be able to get the submission. So for those reasons, I will take the newcomer, the prospect, the Rafael Tobias. But anyway, lastly, we got Turcios versus Montes. This is one that I keep going back and forth on. Everyone is picking Montes this week, but I don't get why. Well, actually, I get why. If you're fading Ricky Turcios, then, fair play to you. I can't complain there. But you cannot be confident in Montes this week whatsoever. Anyone who's confident on Montes, or if you're placing money on Montes, I think that's genuinely insane, because you can't have any confidence on this man. We have not seen him fight since 2024. He's had a long layoff. I put this in my notes too. This is something I really wanted to touch on that I didn't have a chance to talk about it in my full card breakdown. because this was like astonishing. So basically, Montez hasn't fought since 2024, and this was due to extreme injuries too. He had severe knee injuries that kept him out of action. Then, besides that, Montez has been extremely inactive throughout the years too. He's only had 5 fights in the last 5 years. You might say, that's not that crazy. You look who he's fighting, or who he's fighting. Well, breaking down his last 5 opponents. Now, since his last 5 opponents have fought him, since they fought Montez, their records are a combined 3-12. His last 5 opponents and anyone he's fought in the last 5 years, after they fought Montez, they've gone on collectively as a whole to go 3-12. And you know the worst part? All 3 of those wins come from one person. So you look at 4 out of his 5 most recent guys that he's fought are 0-12. Or it's like 0-10 or something. It is abysmal. The level of competition that Montez has fought is dog shit. And now he's coming in as a UFC debut off a terrible injury to his knee, a long layoff, 2-year layoff, and now he's a big favorite. If you're betting on Montez, go ahead and call it wraps. Go ahead and call it wraps. Now, he might win. He might come in here, land a submission, and then everyone with their Montez slips feels like an absolute genius. But that'll be luck. That will be luck. Because that's the thing. I understand if you're fading Ricky Turcios this week. I get it. His fight IQ is terrible. He doesn't have the power to really hurt a guy like Montez. And that's the other thing. We saw Montez in, it was, I don't know, his 4th or 5th most recent fight a couple years ago. His chin problems are terrible. He got cracked by a 3-4, 38-year-old journeyman, jobber.
Oof. Oh, beautiful right hand.
But anyway, with Ricky Turcios, I get why people could be fading him. And that's the thing too. I didn't realize this since I was talking about it in my full card breakdown. Ricky Turcios is moving up a weight class to take this fight, which you don't love to see because Ricky Turcios is one of these guys. He was never the most physically imposing guy to begin with. So seeing him, move up a weight class, not the best look. He doesn't have a ton of knockout power whatsoever to really hurt a guy like Montez and really cause those potential chin problems, really test the chin of a guy like a Montez. So, that aspect's really not there. It's really just if Turcios can make this ugly and nitty gritty and make it a nasty fight that's back and forth. We saw Montez struggled on the Contender Series against a low-level guy who did the exact same thing. He won the first round, but then he death-gassed. That's the exact same style that Ricky Turcios had, and Ricky Turcios has better cardio. Ricky Turcios will not death-gas. Will he do stupid shit? Probably. Will he probably open up submissions for Montez to wrap up a front choke? Probably. It's probably going to be there at some point in this fight. We saw against Raul Rosas Jr., he dominated him with the grappling, but are we ranking Montez the same level of a Raul Rosas Jr.? There's just way too many concerns. And I'll be honest, I really have been considering a pick flip to a guy like Montez because on one hand, it's just Turcios is so damn unreliable. He does so many stupid things in his fights. He's probably going to give up submission opportunities throughout this fight. So if you're picking the, not undefeated, he has 1 loss, but if you're going with the unproven prospect just because Ricky Turcios stepping up a weight class, you're just fading him just to do some stupid shit, it's not a bad pick. I don't mind the pick whatsoever. I've been contemplating pick flipping to Montez. I'm waiting to see what these weigh-ins are like. So I'm not even saying I'm totally writing off Montez. I'm considering a pick flip to him, depending on how these guys look with the step up in the weight class for a guy like Turcios. It's just in terms of the bets. This is one you got it. This is a definition of a dog or pass. You cannot play Montez. You either got to just sit this one out or do a little stab on Turcios, or maybe a Montez submission if you're feeling really crafty. But if this goes to a decision, that's the thing too. He's a 2-1 favorite, but if you look at the decision only, so if there's a finish, you get a refund. Decision only, Montez is like a -150. So the books are saying, if this were to go 15 minutes, he has a slight possible advantage over a guy like Turcios. And you're taking that against a crafty vet like a Turcios who, like I said, not the best, has done dumb shit. Now he's stepping up a weight class, but still, he's picked up rounds against pretty proven guys like a Bernardo Sopai, who I rate pretty well. So, but anyway, sorry for the little side tangent on this one. It's just, this is a goofy ass fight, I will say. But anyway, if you guys like the content, help your boy out with the algorithm. Drop a like, drop a comment, hype it up. Subscribe if you're new, it goes a long way. So thank you guys so much for all the love. Now, you guys know what time it is. We got to talk about the weekly poll. Now, we had a couple options this week. You guys vote on who is your lock of the week, and then we adjust the picks based on your guys' results. Obviously, we had Raul Rosas Jr., Caio Borralho, Jeong and Donte Johnson. I was almost not going to put Donte Johnson on here. It was a bit of a freebie. I figured it was almost guaranteed that he was going to win. It's just I really don't think there's any locks this week. So, as you guys saw, so I wasn't dying to just take him off and throw another one in there that I really didn't think was a lock either way. But anyway, in terms of last week, we absolutely cashed last week David Martinez. It was a close poll, but he came in clutch, ended up getting the win there. So the streak continues back in the green. But anyway, we had some comments. We had our boy St. Trunk said Max Holloway Holloway. We had Mikey Ben say Dare. We had Safari say Font and Dober. Yeah. And then we had Midnight Run say Borralho by finish. Is one of my favorite bets this card. I wouldn't be surprised. I feel like it's probably a decision, but I wouldn't be my boat. He definitely could finish RDR. And then we had our boy G&M said Ferreira. We had Jeremy say RoboCop. We had Booze say probably the Johnson fight to end by KO. I like that as well. Chuta Box said Brundage is dangerous early, fought much better guys than Donte. I agree. I do agree. Brundage round 1 KO is always live. But anyway, in terms of how you guys voted, no surprise here. I figured Donte Johnson was going to win. This was a weird one this week. But anyway, if we're going to adjust it, bada boom, bada bang, you guys know the deal. This is one I kind of contemplated, though. I will say, I went back and forth. I feel like we could bump it up to just a high confidence pick. I really don't think Donte Johnson's a lock. I feel like Cody Brundage is actually decently alive this week. If he actually has the mentality there, if he actually is locked in, he could have some success. I'm not completely writing him off. Or if you guys want, we could do it like normal, where we bump it up to a lock. You guys let me know in the comments. Should we make it as a lock? Or this week in particular, do we just drop it down to a high confidence pick? Let you guys pick on this. But anyway, that should do it. Thank you guys so much for all the love on the recent videos. Thank you guys so much for all the support. I'll be coming out later this week with the best bets and the weigh-in recap video, so stay tuned for those. Especially this week with the weigh-in recap. You know, I will say there are a lot of guys that I'm looking to see how they come in on the scales. I want to see how Ricky Turcios is moving up a weight class. I want to see how Cody Durden looks, how Cody Garbrandt looks. There's a lot of guys that I'm keeping my eye on this week, so it'll be an interesting one. It'll be an important one this week. But anyway, guys, thank you so much again for all the love on the video. I'm going to get this one out to you guys here ASAP. In the meantime, it's your boy Jacob from Topside MMA, and I'll see you guys soon. So, peace.
You crazy mother.